All right. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I have an awesome panel today. We're going to get started off talking about third parties and Cornel West or bust. So I'm interested in hearing their opinions. Kit will be joining us, I think, a little bit later. I think he had tech issues a couple minutes ago. But I want to start out by letting everyone introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start off with Delilah.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me on your show again, Sabby. I'm Delilah Barrios. I ran for governor on the Green Party ticket 2022. So we're just getting ready for 2024 now.
All right. And Chuck.
Yeah, listen, Sabby, first of all, thank you for having me. You've been doing some incredible work, and particularly some of your interviews with Dr. West and clarifying some misconceptions. It's great to be here. I'm a journalist. I do some sports writing, but I like to cover the movements on the ground and like to speak from that perspective. And right now, I'm dialing in from Atlanta at the Stop Cop City Week of Action. So I'm learning a lot this week.
Awesome. So I'm sure everyone knows by now, Dr. West has decided to run for president through the Green Party. And then also Dr. Jill Stein is actually, it appears, is going to be his campaign manager, which I think is really huge considering she's run for president before with the Green Party. So she knows what to expect running as a third party candidate. I want to start with you, Delilah. Like, how do you feel about Dr. West's decision to run third party?
Oh, I'm just relieved that he did because I didn't feel very hopeful, honestly, with our other prospects. So I'm really grateful that we've maintained ballot access for so long in so many states that he really does have a chance of winning the presidency. And I think that it's going to be really good to see people turn out for third party in ways that we haven't seen before.
Awesome. Chuck, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm really excited. It's the first time in almost my memory that I'm so politically aligned with a candidate. I first publicly met Dr. West on the campaign trail in 2014 at a Free Palestine rally. Now, I want to repeat what I just said. At 2014 at a Free Palestine rally, that is career suicide. Public figure there, and if you remember, there were massacres going on. At that point, you advanced your career by talking bad about Palestinians, by saying they're human shields. So to have someone who would speak truth to power and has been very consistent, I've seen him in Standing Rock, I've seen him, interviewed him twice in Ferguson. He has been interviewed him in Charlottesville. There's no public figure that exists who is out with the protests. And it's not, he doesn't go to the ones where everyone's already there. He goes to the ones that need attention. So his very presence and celebrity will bring that. So as someone who covers the on the ground movements, I don't think I would ever, see something like that where I would be so aligned with the people in general and human rights.
All right. Well said, Chuck. Kit, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then if you'll answer that question as well, how do you feel about Dr. West running third party? Oh, we can't hear you. Yeah, I think you're muted. Yeah, you're still muted. That's okay. Maybe I'm not sure if you have your mic connected in StreamYard, but sometimes it works if you hop off and log back on. StreamYard is weird like that sometimes. Yeah, give that a whirl. Okay, so here's something that I wanted to play because it's very obvious. We've seen what happened to people like Bernie Sanders running through the Democratic Party. We saw how the DNC treated him in 2016 and in 2020. I don't know if you have seen this, but this was recent. Now, RFK Jr. actually had a meeting in New Hampshire. It's called Conversation with the Candidate. And I'm so glad that this woman asked this question. So I want to go ahead and play the question that she said. This is really oh, wait, I think that was already lined up. Sorry. Whoopsie. I don't know why I did that. Okay, here we go. Listen to this. I hope I got it right. Yeah.
Having the courage and backbone to tell the American voters the truth. And hopefully you will be able to heal the divide. My question is, Many former registered Democrats are hesitant to rejoin the party to vote for you, given the past history of the DNC. This year, they have already stated Biden is the candidate for the ticket. What would you say to these voters? How can you fight an entity that can decide what candidate will be on the ballot, regardless of what voters wanted?
Well, what I would say is, the voter has a choice. You can come out to the poll, and you can support somebody who is not the DNC's choice. And I agree with you. We're living in a time in American history where.
And I have to pause it there because he gets into like the whole January 6th thing. We can't be playing that on here. But I wanted to say, notice the question that she was just asking him. She said, like, the Democratic Party has already said that Joe Biden is going to be the candidate. Now, RFK Jr. is telling people, well, you can still, come out and vote for me. But even he has acknowledged how corrupt the DNC is. And I want to hear from both of you. When we think about like something like what Cornel West is doing, there's been a lot of criticism from people saying like he should be running for the Democratic Party. But you just heard what she just said and how RFK feels about like the Democratic Party. And I'm going to show you something else that Marianne Williamson said as well, because I think this is important too. Marianne tweeted this. She said, when our campaign reached out to groups of high school Democrats of America, they were contacted by their national board telling them they could not engage with any candidates other than President Biden. So you see, it's already happening. So she said, really teaching the kids about democracy, huh, guys? So how do you guys feel about that, about how the DNC just basically, they do what they feel is best and they go against what the American people want?
If I may just go ahead, I think that everybody's tired of this game. You know what I'm saying? Everybody who's criticizing anybody going against Biden on the Democratic ticket is so spineless and unprincipled because they know already where the interests are. And it's with the military industrial complex. It's with, big pharma, industries like that. And so, honestly, I don't know how they hold conversations with people face to face where they're willing to say, well, it's important that we're having these conversations. No, the conversation isn't important as far as political parties is going. Like, that's not the only thing that we're supposed to do here. As a previous politician, it's not just like, oh, well, I want to promise this, or I believe in this, or my beliefs are this. It's not about that. Like, people need to see real change, and the Democratic Party as a whole has been a complete and abject failure. And I think about like, oh, if Hillary had won, if Jill Stein had won, I do not think that our country would be in as great turmoil as it is right now. And so that's what I want people to consider. It's like, it's really a waste of your energy and your time working for these, candidates who are just going to bow down to the establishment. They're just going to endorse Biden at the end anyway. I mean, we're all tired of the charade. So I just think, I don't know how you have those conversations with people where you're trying to seem truthful and principled at all.
Chuck, how do you feel about that?
Well, listen, I'm a reformed liberal, okay? I'm not a long-time person who advocated for green. I didn't have revolutionary parents or anything. I learned from history. I campaigned for Obama. I did. When he said we're going to close Gitmo on day one, I believed him. When he said that we would end the war in Iraq, I didn't think that meant move the troops to other places and have more troops elsewhere. I have to be able to look at the receipts that have come in, not just Obama, but since, and make adjustments. That's the situation that happened to Bernie and how they all colluded after he took the lead and people dropping out, Klobuchar dropping out, and Buttigieg dropping out, and they all ganged up on him. This is not democracy. We know what it was. And when Bernie had as great a chance as possible, they stonewalled him. And I didn't even get to the media component as well as we're having swastikas. That wasn't the story. It wasn't even a one-day story. We were talking how mean Bernie supporters were online, while literal swastika flags were at his rallies. We skipped that. Now, if Barack Obama was president and there were swastika rallies, we would see it, and rightfully so. We absolutely should see it. So we have to be able to learn from history, and when we learn from it, informs the present. So here we are. There's no evidence that we have that you could run as Democrat and go far and not get blocked. So he chose a different party chose the Green Party. And I think the electoral lens is only one of many lenses, and we can speak about that in a little bit. But I think it's somewhat myopic to just come in to say, well, if he wins. Opportunities here, there's mobilizing opportunities here on important issues, and I'll be happy to speak on that. But listen, if you really think the Democratic Party, you could win through that route, you have not been paying attention.
Well said. Chuck, I think you may want to unhook your Bluetooth. I think there may be a little bit of static, but I'm going to go up to
We're going to do that then.
You in just a second, Delilah. Let me try to see if Kit, can you do a test?
Hi, I am very, very, very sorry for this. Apparently, tech gremlins like to play around, especially at the last minute. There is a storm that's brewing out here in Chicago, so maybe that's playing around. But hello, everyone. Sorry for being late. My name is Kit Cabela. I'm the host of Hard Lens Media. We're live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. Now, here's the situation, how I feel about Dr. Cornel West, especially throwing his hat in the campaign ring. It is something that was long overdue and something we need to see in 2020. Already now, we're seeing the massive wave of voter suppression and censorship and people saying that third-party candidates are a threat. The real truth is third-party candidates are not a threat. They are actually a voice of the voiceless. 50% of Americans are identifying themselves as independent. 50% of Americans are tired of voting for the two-party system. And already when you have people like Pod Save America saying it's okay to voter shame and yell at people, it is up to us now to push back against the system. Now, the challenge for a third-party candidate, especially to be on the ballot and on the debate stage, will be monumental because there are many states that are draconian towards Greens, Libertarians, or Independents. Our job now, as commentators, as people report on the news, and everybody that's watching, it is our social responsibility to break away from that neoliberal narrative and bullying. And I'm going to say that again. It's bullying that's going to be happening towards us, and we have to push back. Nothing has fundamentally changed under Joe Biden. It's gotten worse, and we already know what to expect from a Republican administration. It's our job now to call for a new movement, and Dr. Cornel West's campaign can be that, but he has to be aggressive, unapologetic, and treat corporate media for what it is, as well as a two-party system, the enemy.
Well said, Kit. How do you guys feel about the fact that as soon as Dr. West announced, it seemed like right out of the gate, mainstream media covered it, which we're not used to seeing that in reference to third-party candidates. To me, it kind of speaks to the fact that something that I've been kind of saying for a while, we need someone to run third-party with a big name, someone that is well-known. This could have been Jesse Ventura in 2020, but that didn't work out. We've talked about that before on the show. But now we see the difference. So the narrative that we've been given before, where people have said that you can't run third party because you're not going to get any attention from mainstream media. Now we see if you're a big name, that's not necessarily obviously the case. And Cornel West has been on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. He's been on all of these mainstream media outlets since he announced. So how do you guys feel about that, about the coverage that he's getting?
I think it's, again, I think it's a positive thing. He's no stranger to, media. He's no stranger to answering hard questions. He's no stranger to aligning with political movements that are really important. So I think it's really wonderful. Now, Green Party, for instance, in the past, my threshold was $50,000 to be on stage for a debate. So it's definitely a monetary setback. You know what I'm saying? Because people are going to say, oh, if you donate to him and you help third-party candidates, we're definitely going to get Trump. And it's like, he's just as bad as Biden. I mean, they're both equally horrible, in my opinion. So it's just, again, I don't want to overuse the word. I don't want to say I'm being too hopeful, but it is good that they really can't say, oh, we're not going to platform this guy, because they had no problem platforming him before. And so they'll really have to eat their words, at this moment, if they fail to recognize him and what he's doing. So, for now, I'm loving this. I think it's great. So make everybody else uncomfortable,
I agree with Delilah's point. Before I give my comment, I want a point of clarity. Did you have to get 15% to get on that debate stage? Can you verify that for me?
I actually don't know right now.
It's 15% for third party.
You need to get 15% in the media to be acknowledged just to even be on the debate stage, and overall above 5%, ideally for a third-party candidate, to be recognized federally so it can be federally funded. That's something the Greens and Libertarians will have to do, especially at the end of this election cycle. But I don't mean to cut you off because I think you're next.
Well, listen, I think those are important points, okay? So there are three levels to this. There's the can you win level, which will dominate. And I'll just say it's never been more ripe for a third-party candidate because Biden has such a low approval rating. Trump has such a low approval rating. Throw your data about third parties out the window for the last, 200 years because you've never had two candidates so monumentally disliked even within their own party. And then you don't have the third party candidate so well known and liked. So it's right to make some movement. But even if you don't make that movement, let's talk about the 5%. If you get to at least the 5%, you get to grow a Green Party. Isn't that what we want to do? We want to grow a party for the long run at the minimum of 5%. But then let's look at 15%. And this is the media person in me talking. We want to mobilize around issues, however they come to fruition. I'm here in Atlanta. They're having a Stop Cop City week. I've only heard one candidate on stage say, and in interviews say, I am for Stop Cop City. I'm against what they're doing. I've only heard one candidate say, Free Palestine, a taboo topic to talk about in the public sphere. If he's on that stage, they can't avoid it. He's going to say Free Palestine, and he's going to say, what's your opinion as well, and hold your feet to the fire. If you want to hear about Medicare for all, then you want him on that stage. You want to hear about reparations, you want to hear him on that stage. So he can advance these issues that activists have been working on but can't get in the limelight. And whatever happens afterwards, we could keep pushing those issues till they come to fruition and policy at some later date.
Kit, what's your take on how the media is already covering Cornel West's announcement?
Well, they're already vilifying him. Fox News, of all places, the only place that's actually kind of giving him a fair shake. But mind you, again, Fox News has its bias, especially because, it's the left fighting the left. No. First of all, do not associate us with the third part, with the Democratic Party, the liberal establishment. Already we're seeing articles saying that Dr. Cornel West will help out Donald Trump, or Dr. Cornel West will be a pain for Biden. Well, it's not my fault that the Biden-Harris administration were incapable and unwilling to follow through with any of their promises. It's not my fault that Bernie Sanders' good friend decided to screw over working-class citizens. And it is not my fault that the Democratic Party is in bed with Wall Street, big banks, and corporations. So for all these people that are crying and screaming, saying, oh, no, you're supporting third parties, yeah, I'm doing it. Purposely, number one, I have a vindictive sense to this. I want to see you cry because you're going to bat for Jim Crow Joe Biden, who's been on the wrong side of history. Personally, I've seen this not happen once, but twice now, 2016 and 2020, where third parties are vilified. Third parties are viewed as spoiler candidates because everyone's suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Donald Trump is the rash indicating something's wrong with body politics. People like Joe Biden, they are the cancer and the virus that is crippling what used to be our republic, not anymore because we live in an oligarchy. So I invite and welcome the liberal tears crying in, saying, oh no, what are you doing? Well, I can't help it if you have somebody who's a orange clown live rent-free in your head. It's not my fault that you're incapable for holding the Democratic Party accountable for their actions. What I'm going to do is go to a candidate that's going to fight for my values and, number one, earn my vote. Third-party candidates are not spoiler candidates. What they are is a symbol of truth and, two, options for voters to vote for. And I'm rather getting sick and tired of the liberal establishment media trying to say to voters, you need to think this way because freedom. That's not the job of the media. That's not the job of the press. The press is supposed to inform people, not tell us what to do. So when I hear corporate media vilify Dr. Cornel West, that once again reestablishes a correct fact. The media works for the owners and the donors of the two-party system. So I won't vote for them. And if that causes people to suffer from trauma and mental scarring and so much more, fine. But don't blame me for the failure of a system that's been going on long before I was born. I don't owe these politicians anything. These politicians, they don't like us. They don't think about us. They don't respect us. So I am not going to think about them. And I don't care about their feelings. And I'm not going to respect them, all the while the Democrats and Republicans are doing insider trading. So here's to, again, my vote going towards the Greens. And if that's the case, so be it. And if the Greens aren't on the ballot, if something does happen, I'll vote Libertarian. And if it isn't a Libertarian, it'll be Independent. But I won't be wasting my time or my energy on Democrats or Republicans. And I encourage everyone watching this live stream to be a free thinker as well and to vote for a party or a member who's not associated with the DNC or RNC. It is our social right to vote for whoever we want. And I don't owe the media any explanation.
That's right. So I'm going to go to you, Delilah, because he is running through the Green Party. Now, there is a little bit of a rift with the fact that there is that Howie Hawkins faction of the Green Party. And I know we've talked about this before, but there are some that are not too happy with the fact that someone like Cornel West, who is a big name, is coming to run through the Green Party and is getting a lot of attention, whereas Howie Hawkins has ran before and was not receiving that same amount of attention. Now, my argument would be that some of Howie Hawkins' policies I can't get down with. I can't get down with the rhetoric that he has in reference to this war with Russia and Ukraine. I can't get down with the Russiagate rhetoric that he has either. So I think he's just going in a different direction than the Green Party that I'm familiar with. What do you think about that, Delilah, being that you've run through the Green Party and there does seem to be a little bit of a split there between the people that support like Howie Hawkins and the other members of the Green Party?
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and state, I am a co-chair of the state party in Texas, and our treasurer is actually already announced like a month ago that she's working with Cornel West's team because we want to, we need to give him the best that we can. He needs the best shot possible. And so I think a lot of people are offended because they think that we've already said we're going to, support him and things like that. We have a process to vote for our candidates, and I don't think the Howie Hawkins section is as great as they think they are. Unfortunately, he hasn't been a very popular candidate, and he's not able, for reasons that you listed, but other reasons too. Me personally, I really did not like his campaign manager. I really did not like a lot of the reactionary beliefs and conversations that people had on the national level. I mean, I can get into conversations with people who've been longtime Greens and they're like, well, I just don't like the word socialism. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a personal problem. We still run democratically, you know what I'm saying? And we encourage these debates. We encourage these discussions because everybody should feel included in our processes. But yeah, I don't think that it's going to be as much of a rift as people think. I think that everybody, if they are aligned with the Green Party and they want to be with us and, really make some headway in this country, yeah, they're going to have to just express how they feel, deal with their feelings, and continue with the process that we have laid forth, because that's the only thing we're going to do. There's nothing that's changing just because Cornel West is running. It's just people are more excited than they were before. And if that personally stings, I think it's time to reevaluate why instead of blaming it on.
Yeah, and I'll tell people too, for people who are not aware, the Green Party does have a primary, just FYI, for people who are not aware of that. Chuck, what's your take on that? Do you think that will be an issue for Dr. West?
Running on the green? Is that what you're saying? I mean, no. And we have to take a step back for a second and just analyze the Biden presidency, pouring money into the military. Let's say we forgot all about that. Over $100 billion into the military. Let's say we forgot that he's raised the ICE budget under him. Forgot all about that. Let's forget that we had a 2020 uprising in every part of the country, including DC, where I live, and after George Floyd, and he gets up on the State of the Union and says, fund the police 3 times, and then goes forth and does so by the tune of $100 million, $100 million, and then it is resembling a Josh Hawley amendment, which came out a year earlier. And so we see this type of unity between Republicans and Democrats. I always say about Biden that when Trump speaks, the white supremacy comes right out of his mouth. With Biden, the white supremacy comes right out of his budget. And we have to look a little bit closer at those budgets that are really harming people. And when you do that, that's bad enough. But if we forgot all that, this man has a 35% approval rating. And so what you're saying is someone who went against every single thing that progressives and leftists wanted, we were told push Biden to the left, the opposite has happened. And then on top of all that, it's not even the general election. You don't even want to primary him. You don't even want, you're saying Biden has done such a good job, despite a 35% approval rating and all of that, that we don't even think he deserves to be primaried. That is a rotten, rotten party to the core, if that's the best you could come up with. So the greatest threat to Joe Biden winning is Joe Biden running.
Well said, Chuck. Kit,
So can you please repeat the question one last time? I apologize.
do you think this will be an issue with Cornel West running through the Green Party, considering there's like the Howie Hawkins faction of the Green Party that some of them they've made some comments on Twitter feeling like they don't feel like it's fair?
Thank you again. I just wanted to clarify that question. So here's the thing. It will be an issue, and I'm going to explain why. As much as I'm a supporter of third parties, we have to be very critical of their actions and lackluster movements, okay? And I say this as constructive criticism towards the third party movement. This goes for Greens and Libertarians. First, let me focus on the Greens. We all remember the aftermath of 2016. That was an ample time for the Greens and any independent or third-party movement to really start building infrastructure to be ready for the next election cycle. There was, and it's still growing now, but it was ample to do it then, but the ink's already dry, to establish something that could be ready for the 2020 election cycle. Whatever arose during those 4 years was under the mismanagement of the Greens, and Howie Hawkins has been an influential member of the Green Party, and there is a faction there. Now, Nico House and the Convo Couch have done a phenomenal job in covering election integrity and having the receipts for a lot of events. Case in point, the Green Party 2020 primary. There's no denying that a lot of people were not a fan of Howie Hawkins, and it can be argued that what we saw in the Democratic primary, especially in 2016 and in 2020, happened in the Green Party of 2020 as well. The Green Party as a whole could have been doing a lot more. On an unrelated subject, when I did a follow-up to a documentary series called Toxic City Tour, we covered an individual who's covering these large industrial pollutants that were contaminating, and still are to this day, Lake Michigan and the air and soil and communities around that area. A lot of those activist groups, we covered them, including the Indiana Green Party between 2016 and 2020. As soon as Biden gets elected in office, everybody, including those Indiana Green Party chapters, disappeared. There, especially here in Illinois, at one point, the Green Party was recognized legitimately here in my state up until 2010. In 2010, the Illinois Green Party lost its status as being recognized as an official third party. This has to deal with management. This has to deal with people who are organizing that said system. And if you have people who are indifferent or lack in an inspiring presence, that's going to trickle on down to state level chapters. So the thing is, Howie Hawkins does have a monopoly and influence in his party, and it will be kind of on the defense. I'll be surprised if they don't try and push back towards Dr. Cornel West, because Cornel West, unlike Howie Hawkins, can actually get results and build a large coalition. And if he truly has Chris Hedges, Jill Stein, and let's say Kashama Sawant and a few other groups come in, well, that's the end of the reign of Howie Hawkins, and I don't think he's going to take that too lightly. So we have to remember the Greens could have done something more before 2024, but they didn't. And that should be very concerning for a lot of people. And I hope Dr. Cornel West's campaign will be ready to deal with any kind of pushback within the Greens, because every time I've interviewed people, especially between 2017 and in 2020, when it comes down to getting the Green Party done or getting it activated, especially in Illinois, afterwards, people really didn't have a plan. There wasn't really an initiative to try and get things done. And that concerns me. And I hope that West and his campaign will be ready. I know this is a grilling subject to say towards the Greens, but at least from my perspective here in Indiana and in Illinois, it's been lackluster. And probably the reason why it's been lackluster is because they don't get anything from the top, and that is from the main branch of the Green Party. And if you have people who don't care about their job or keep on doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results, and that's zero.
These are all good points, Kit. Thank you so much for saying that, because otherwise, I've told you this multiple times before, you have to want to win. Like, you have to want to win, whether you're a Green Party, Libertarian Party, or whatever. Like, you really have to give it your all. And you're correct that, like, after, Biden won, or after, Trump won in 2016, it's just like, it seems like the energy just kind of dies away. Like, you still have to be fighting. Otherwise, this just seems like a political club, or it seems like some social club or something like that. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like actual, like, trying to fight and challenge power. And I know it takes money to be able to do these things. I totally understand that. But one of the criticisms that I had, and Delilah was on this panel, it was a Green Party panel on the show. I said that you need to advertise more. You need to market more. Like, people shouldn't have to second guess whether or not a third party candidate or Green or whatever is running in their district. Like, they should know. So that's we know mainstream media is going to try to snub you. So that's on the party to find other ways to overcome that. And that's where independent media can come in. But that being said, and Kit, I know you've had this experience too. That being said, when independent media reaches out and you are a candidate and you agree to come on, you actually have to show up. You cannot just not appear.
Oh, I've got a little bit more onto that. I don't mean to cut off the rest of the panel, but look, my criticism towards the libertarians, obviously there's different factions involved in that. I mean, but comparison to the Greens, every time I've interviewed candidates, the Libertarian Party always shows up and is ready to be on the ballot and fight for themselves. Again, in 2022, the Libertarian Party, the Illinois Libertarian Party, was able to secure their candidates for major seats, such as the run for the Illinois governor on down. That is something I've never seen before. All what the Illinois Green Party managed to get on is maybe one local House rep seat, and then 3 seats for water reclamation in Illinois, and that's during the 2022 midterm. Illinois Green Party has to up its game. And also, when in 2020, when I tried to reach out to the Green Party and Libertarian Party for like an independent third-party presidential debate, you want to know what I got from both camps? We're trying to wait to get onto the main stage with Biden and Trump. That's never going to happen. So to all third-party candidates, to the Green Party especially, show up on independent media. Don't waste our time, and don't expect to be at the main stage on MSNBC or CNN or Fox News. You have to show up on independent media. You have to go on different spaces because, again, there's already a few video clips going out there of corporate media saying that third-party candidates are spoiler candidates.
Yep.
They're not. So, again, third parties, don't waste everyone's time. Show up on independent media because that's the only way people are going to hear about you.
Well said. Now I'm going to pivot to you, Delilah. In the end, though, when all is said and done, because I saw this before 2016 with Jill Stein, etc., will people be bold enough to vote third party, or will people basically cower to the fear mongering that you could get Donald Trump, and because of that, they'll vote for Joe Biden again, someone who is barely able to talk at this point in time? What do you think is going to happen, Delilah?
I just want to kind of circle back that I do have the same frustrations with a lot of other people, especially being in leadership positions within the Green Party. Most of our positions are not paid. They're volunteer level positions. And I think a lot of people, especially people who are Dem exiting and they're joining the Green Party, are like, well, when I was in the Democratic Party, it went like this and this and this. And they have this level of like corporate comfortability that we do not have. And so it is really hard to combat that, because I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, Green Party doesn't care about working class because you don't pay people enough money for the positions we do pay for. And the thing is, like, most of us candidates, we're reaching into our own pockets and things like that. And I think that that's really something that people should not be ashamed of. So one time when I met Howie Hawkins the first time and I talked to him, it wasn't because of people within the Green Party. It was because of independent media that I was able to make that connection with him. And one of my greatest grievances was that I didn't have the intel, and I didn't have the phone numbers, and I didn't have the voter logs to call people and do all the things that I was supposed to be doing. But specifically because of poor leadership, poor management within our own party. So these are very real concerns. Like, if we mess this up, I don't see us with a future, you know? Like, every year we have to have lawyers that are paid to make sure that we are able to stay on the ballots. I mean, we have ongoing litigation in most states just keeping our candidates on the ballot because of all of the thresholds that we have to meet and the signature requirements and the money involved. So it is a struggle. And I think, again, you know, people will have their grievances, but it's like, Kit shouldn't have to say people should show up to appointments. Like, that should just be known. You know what I'm saying? And I think there's a lot of people who are not invested in seeing this party really grow because they're comfortable where they are and they want us to stay small. And we have to challenge that within our own, you know, with our own systems too. And so it's definitely a struggle, and I'm not one to lie about things. Like, we're not.
Chuck, I'm going to mute you for, I'm sorry, Chuck, I'm going to mute you for just a second because you have an echo. Okay, go ahead, Delilah. Sorry.
No, it's just that we're not, you know, we're not inexperienced. You know what I'm saying? It's just that, like, our obstacles are definitely a lot larger than these two main corporate parties. And so I think just by our principles of being anti-capitalist means that we're vulnerable because we're not going to be pulling in millions of dollars each quarter. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, even with somebody like Cornel West, I still don't know that we'll get that outpouring of donations that some of the other mainstream parties would. And, you know, I think that it's a real concern, but I genuinely hope that people can understand that somebody like Cornel West, who's not out of touch with reality, who's not comfortable in retirement, who's very active and he is dedicated to the causes that he believes in. I would have a lot of questions for people who are trying to speak out against him already. I don't think that they're allied with the working class like the rest of us are.
Do you think that in the end, though, do you think that more people are going to be willing to vote third party, or do you think that they're going to do what happened, you know, before, like when Jill Stein ran against Hillary Clinton, where people are going to just say, well, I'm afraid we'll get Trump again, so I'm going to vote for Joe Biden?
I think that those people who are very dedicated to the corporate parties are going to be quieted by the reality of the situation, that this is about the worst most people have had to experience in their lifetimes. You know what I mean? We didn't get student loan debt forgiveness. Roe v. Wade fell. We didn't get $15 minimum wage. We don't have healthcare in this country. These are the harsh realities. And people who are trying to say, no, we have to vote shame you. It's your fault if you don't get the policies that you want. Do you know how bad it is to live in a red state and feel like it's my fault as a woman that I didn't vote for some, you know, corporate Democrat, that I have to deal with, you know, lack of access to abortion and things like that? That's really, that game, like I said before, is very tired and old. So I don't think people are going to be turned away from Green Party. I think people are going to show up for Green Party, and people are going to show up and vote their conscience because they've already lived through all the things that they tried to fearmonger us about. At this point, you're being delusional if you don't think, you know what I'm saying, that you can't personally make your situation better, because you can. You don't have to bow down to these entities. And I think that, you know, somebody like Cornel West, who does know how to talk to people, who does understand the reality of the situation, people are houseless, people are suffering, he's not turning a blind eye to that. You know what I'm saying? And that's really important. I think, if anything, to show for our party, we are a working class party. We are a pro-peace party, long term. And, you know, our candidates genuinely, for the most part, from what I've seen, don't bow down in favor to the Democratic or Republican establishments. So we have that.
Awesome. Chuck, what do you think will happen?
Well, first I want to address your earlier question about media and the role, because I think it's really important about us as independent media to help combat those lies, those narratives that we're going to see in corporate media. And I want to commend you because you've done a phenomenal job in doing that. Not only did you interview him, not only did you ask the right questions, but you re-showed him in clips. I curated your clips and would go on top of it because I want to hear what he has to say about a free Palestine that I've never heard that before. When there was confusion about a DeSantis article, which is completely mischaracterized, you are the one who asked him about the title, and he said that title was ridiculous. Wall Street Journal came up with that title. He said that it was ridiculous. I think that's an important piece of information to know, as people keep saying he had a revolutionary defense of his education plan. And in his words, he said, I disagree with 98% of everything of DeSantis. He was speaking about one piece called CLT that he's been fighting for years, long before DeSantis. And these are the types of clarifications that are needed because we know people are going to play political gotcha with Dr. West. We know his Christian faith that makes him say brother this and sister that to literally every person on the planet is going to be used against him, not as someone who approaches someone that way in dialogue. I'm not interested in how he approaches a way in dialogue. I'm interested in whether he stands by his policy. And we have to be clear that Dr. West stands by his policy. And just because he shakes your hand and says, brother, this, that is not a way to say I agree or I approve of you. That's saying if you get your act right and come with the right policy, I'll give you an invitation back. That's not the same as working with someone. So his interpersonal skills and demeanor, which is driven by his Christian faith, is used against him. And we have to have those conversations with people who don't understand that and make those clarifications.
Well said, Chuck. I think that's important for people to understand. I mean, my mom's like really religious and like at her church, everybody calls each other that too, like brother and sister and stuff like that. I think that's important for people to understand. Kit, what's your take on all this? Do you think people will have the gutso to do it this time, to actually vote third party and not just vote lesser of two evils? Well, they're both evil at this point, but.
There's two ways of looking at this. My ideal scenario is that we do have a high voter turnout. Let's look at the field right now, and we have to include the Democrats and Republicans. We have Donald Trump, who has successfully rebuilt his image. Not only did he knock the ball out with that CNN town hall, and no, this is not an endorsement of Trump, but he came more prepared than I thought he would be. And again, that's what his supporters want. So already right off the bat, Republican voters are going to turn out to support Donald Trump. Then you have the Democratic primary. RFK Jr., whether you like some of his policies or dislike him, he is at least standing at a strong 20% and growing. Now, depending on how the DNC plays its game, they will, apologies for that, they will go ahead and weigh in. And of course, we know Democrats already have who they want as their nominee. This could lead into more fuel and anger and resentment for Democrats for people to look at another venue. Dr. Cornel West's name has, again, a lot of recognition. And unlike Bernie Sanders or anybody else, he has been very clear in calling out the hypocrisy of the Obama administration, of Donald Trump, and yes, of Joe Biden. He doesn't fall for the same traps that you hear a lot of other candidates go through, and that is people vilifying third-party candidates as a spoiler candidate. He has successfully fought back against this narrative, especially this early on in the campaign. So that's something that can inspire a voter to turn out and say, okay, my guy's not going to apologize. My candidate is not going to bow to the media and let them run all over him. Dr. Cornel West, so far, in my perspective, at least as it stands right now until something else happens, is the candidate that I think a lot of third-party candidates or third-party voters have been asking for. Someone who is consistent and will actually have follow-through. Now, voter turnout. We have to remember people are burnt out by electoral politics. People just might not give a damn. So what Dr. Cornel West and his campaign has to do, and this also, again, is getting the Green Party in order, getting on various media platforms to spread that message, because already this early on, and this should show you just how much of a threat the media views him, they're saying he's going to spoil the race for Biden. He is a threat to Biden. He's a danger to Biden. He's going to help Trump win. We're already veterans of this. Sabrina, you've seen this firsthand. I have seen this firsthand. Everybody in the viewing audience, all of you have seen this before. This is nothing new. And so this should motivate all of you to be ready with all of your counterpoints and facts to destroy the feelings of these quote unquote vote blue no matter who sycophants. So voter turnout is key. It's just, again, a matter of message consistency, and also for Dr. Cornel West to get on various media platforms to break that narrative and to share the need of why there must be third parties. So again, it really depends on the enthusiasm, the overall field of the both candidates in the Democratic and Republican primary, because again, voters can get upset with both parties and look for another venue. Dr. Cornel West, if his message remains consistent, we could see a massive overflow potentially of support for third parties. But it's all about messaging and getting your image out there on various aspects of social media.
What do you think is going to happen in reference to this? This will be the final question, because I know I have a hard stop tonight. But what do you think is going to happen in reference to independent media? Because it was actually independent media that, basically told me about the Bernie Sanders campaigns in a truthful way. I was able to hear more information through Kit at Hardlands Media, and through other people, even going all the way back to Majority Report, TYT days. That's where I was able to hear the truth about what Bernie Sanders was trying to do when you compare it to mainstream media. Do you think it was a mistake for some independent outlets to choose to push forward someone like Marianne Williamson to do that Bernie Sanders strategy? Do you think it would have been better just to wait? And I asked that question because now people are definitely, some people were divided before then because some people just didn't want Marianne, but now some people are even more divided because RFK Jr. jumped into the race. And then now Dr. West, who's being brave enough to say, forget the duopoly. This is not going to work. I saw what they did to Bernie. I'm doing this outside the race. Do you think that was a mistake to so quickly just say, okay, this is our person, we're going to go with Marianne, and this is going to be the person that's going to be the progressive candidate? Because the polls, I say this because RFK Jr. came out, announced after Marianne, and he's ahead of her in the polls. And so I'm just curious to hear what you guys think about that. Delilah.
Personally, I don't find Marianne Williamson to be a progressive candidate, especially policy-wise. That's just my opinion. But I think that it's telling. It's telling that comfort within media to humanize the corruption of the, corporate establishment, or try to, just get us involved in this game. I think that is very telling that they don't see any point in challenging the establishment. Because even if you're like, oh, well, we're giving, Russell Brand was platforming Marianne Williamson, and he's supposed to be an independent, outlet, right? He went to Florida and one other place when he came to the US, and he's giving Marianne Williamson, and she's having these conversations about democracy. Meanwhile, she's going to do the same thing that everybody else does and back Joe Biden, who has been very directly harmful to a lot of communities. And so I think, I don't know that they should wait. I'd rather see their true colors early on myself personally. But yeah, I think it is very telling that you're comfortable. If you're not allying yourself with the working class, it's telling that you're not in a place where you want to lose a whole lot. That's what it says to me. So,
and Chuck,
I don't like that people came out earlier, starting with Bernie Sanders. What are you doing? Look how early it is. What if somebody did that to you when you were running? Well, that's the thanks that he gives back. I mean, come on. Listen, I start with the policy. I'm a policy guy. Policy is my love language. So let's look at Marianne Williamson. I agree with a lot of her domestic policies, but she's progressive except Palestine. What is that all about? Her war record, we know where she's going to go. She's going to, side with the status quo. So we understand that. We see the differences between Dr. West and her. Forget where they're running. So I have fundamental differences, and that's where Marianne lost me. I did do like that she talks about reparations. So will Dr. West. And then you take the other a big outlier, RFK Jr. And I think the most important thing that came out recently, and this is part and parcel probably of running in the Democratic Party, is that he had some sentiments that were somewhat favorable, somewhat empathetic to Palestinians and Roger Waters' point of view. And then 5 minutes later, AIPAC and the Christians United Against Israel got a hold of him, shook him down, maybe beat him up in the back room, and the next day he came out as a raging right-wing winger against Palestinians. And if you watch his interview with Glenn Greenwald, the lack of humanity that he showed, that he talked about, and the great number of falsehoods that he said were so off-putting, but they did something else. If you could flip in 24 hours on your opinion because AIPAC got a hold of you and other lobbies got a hold of you, then all those things he's saying about the military-industrial complex that I might agree with, what makes you think he's not going to flip on all of that too the second he were to be president? He's going to flip on it. So throw all that other stuff out because we see how he flips. But we don't see Dr. West flipping. We see him holding the line.
Wow, Chuck, you just brought something to my attention. I never thought about that. That's a good point. Pay attention
Think
to what
about
people are doing right now.
Well,
Think
here's
about
the
it.
thing. I think. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
That's good.
Okay. Well, to answer your question about independent media, quote unquote, independent media, throwing their weight behind Marianne Williamson and saying that this is our candidate. Yes, God damn it. It was a mistake. It was the dumbest thing ever. But see, I don't want those people to speak for the rest of us. They made their decision. And what they were trying to do, which was pretty downright pathetic, is recreate the good feels of the 2016 and 2020 Bernie Sanders moment. That was lightning in the bottle that Bernie Sanders decided to open up and let loose. It's his own fault that he abandoned his own movement. He allowed the Democratic Party to screw him over. And so now what? We get this manufactured Bernie 2.0 of Marianne Williamson, the Orb Queen, somebody who has had many, many issues in regards to how she treats people, especially who work under her, okay? And she is somebody who is incapable of having a really decent back and forth conversation with voters or commentators. This is somebody who likes to have an area cushioned out for her. And not to mention these same quote unquote media networks that are saying that this is our candidate, this is who she is, this is who we're going to rally around. What do you mean she has all the values you align with? Did you not pay attention to how she feels about, again, funding this ridiculous war in Ukraine that's happening? And again, if she's willing to do that, there's a lot of things that she will also compromise on. And if she's unwilling, and not to mention, wait a minute, how can I even forget this? Crystal Ball interviewed Marianne Williamson at the end of the 2020 election cycle. And again, when confronted about the Democratic Party and the fact that there's a lack of election integrity, Marianne Williamson still said we have to support and help out Joe Biden. So if she was willing to do that then and even acknowledge that there was election fraud taking place, she's going to do the same goddamn thing. So anybody that would have thrown in their money towards that sink boat of that Titanic of a campaign, well, then you already know what the end result is. Marianne Williamson will support Joe Biden, whoever the establishment Democrat will be. And those media networks that were surrounding around her and saying that this is our candidate, you know, she hasn't been really consistent with her points of view and policies. Plus, when also you have said candidate officiate a goddamn wedding, and she's there, and she's good friends with two individuals, both, again, Crystal and Kyle, and they're the ones heavily promoting her and saying that she's really big on TikTok. Yeah, everyone can be big on TikTok. Have we not been paying attention to what's on TikTok? Not a lot of big brain videos there on TikTok. So, yeah, it was a mistake on their part, and that's the L they have to live with. So it's not the job of independent media to tell people who to vote for. It's our job here at independent media to give commentary and analysis on this sick neoliberal system that we are in and to shine a light on who's running for office. Now, here's what I tell my audience. I'm going to vote independent or third party. The rest of you, you have to come up with your own conclusion because there are a lot of people burnt out by electoral politics. Look at the candidates and vote for the person who's going to, number one, earn your vote. Just because, let's say, RBN or Jimmy Dore or Hardlands Media says this is the person to vote for, no. You make your own choice because it is not the job of our networks to say that this is the person who we should rally around. If that's the case, then this person, whoever they may be they an independent third-party candidate, whoever they may be in this election cycle or those down the road, they have to have the ability to have charisma and, more importantly, be consistent with their points of view. And as said earlier, Dr. Cornel West has been consistent with his policies. But again, it is up for the viewers and people watching independent media to come to their own conclusion and decide who has earned their individual vote. So to all those who are saying that Marianne Williamson is going to be the candidate, she's went through what? 2 campaign managers, has a history of violence towards her staffers. Yeah, that it's not only has that campaign imploded, it imploded faster than a Titan submarine. Okay, that was too soon. All right, that was too soon.
Damn, kid. Well, thank all of you so much for coming on. Before you go, where can people find you, Delilah?
Oh, yeah, I'm just down here in Texas boiling. So Delilah for Texas on Twitter. If you want to volunteer and help get Cornel West, elected, please join a local chapter and see what you can do, because we do need your help. It's not going to be as easy as paying for a few commercials. So yeah, I'd really appreciate if people would, reach out to their local chapters. And if you're having trouble, reach out to me and I'll make some phone calls. Like, I'll do whatever I can, because I think it's really important to make sure that people are heard and seen, and that the working class is not abandoned the way they've been in the past. So it's really important for all of us to kind of chip in. So yeah, thanks again for having me on.
Awesome. Chuck, where can people find you?
I'm at Chuck Mo D1.
We lost Chuck.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no, Chuck. Chuck, they got Chuck. Kit,
They got him.
Where can people find you, Kit?
Well, okay, until he comes back, start your morning right and righteously angry with Hardlands Media, 9 a.m. Central on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, and Odyssey as well. Pour some whiskey in your coffee, grab a mimosa, smoke a bowl, do some shrooms, chew on some cocoa leaves, whatever you need to do to get you through your mornings. Start it off right and righteously angry with Hardlands Media. We have a great time. We have a lot of stories to talk about, especially stuff that's been breaking over the weekend. And you can check out our website too, hardlandsmedia.com. There's a lot of great content there. So please follow us on social media. And we are looking forward to hanging out with all of you lovely people in the morning.
Awesome. Chuck, where can people find you?
I'm at Chuck Mo D1 on Twitter, and in particularly the next few days, I will be posting a lot. I'm down in Atlanta posting about this incredible Stop Cop City movement. In my opinion, it is one of the greatest domestic issues going on right now, because if we don't stop Cop City here, there will be cop cities in every single state in America, to a dystopian police force that will be irreversible. And so they are on the front lines here, have been fighting this good fight. And I'd like to extend an invitation to Dr. Cornel West, who I saw in Standing Rock, and I saw in Ferguson and Baltimore, to come down to Atlanta. And I know he will. That's how confident. And stand with the protesters here to help stop this cop city from being built.
There you go. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabs. Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, guys, we do have 3 stories I want to cover. I do have a hard stop at 7 o'clock. So let's go ahead and dive pretty quickly. I'm gonna go to the super chats first. Thank you so much for the super chat, Dr. Nick, as you should. Thank you, Wicked Designs. This edifice is a farce and needs to be toppled, or we're all doomed. Thank you, Philosophical. Marianne has big elementary school teacher who thinks she's too smart for the job energy. That's that's interesting. That's a good one. And thank you for this as well. Cornel needs to talk nuclear power. The Green Party is full of anti-nuclear maniacs. You can't pretend to be serious about climate and be anti-nuclear. I think we were going to I was going to try to do a debate about that on this channel at some point. And I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin Roger. Listen, these fear-mongering Democrats that tell you third party will get you the Republican, first put on your best crazy eyes, then tell them, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm willing to just let the entire system burn down. Now, if you got an issue with that, then you better go tell the Democrats to deliver. And I don't mean throw us a bone. You don't have to be the Joker to get them to bend. Just convince them you are. Scare the living crap out of them. And thank you for this tip as well. Something I learned from libertarians and conservatives: while the left focuses on demanding presidential candidates for new laws we'd like to see, Medicare for all, tax the rich, to name a few, libertarians and conservatives say there are laws already on the books we can enforce to help us. When interviewing Wes and others, we shouldn't just ask what we want, but what laws that are already on the books that you'd enforce. That's a really good point, Roger. Didn't think about that. And thank you for this one as well. DM'd you and Kit a few laws they can enforce now should they win that you can pose as questions. Let's build this list of laws already on the books as questions. Regarding laws we'd like to see pass, let's include giving us DOJ to revoke corporate charters like state AGs can, but go further to allow DOJ to issue out cooperative charters. Thank you so much for that.